Hey everyone, if you haven't already listened to the episode with Art Chang, who's the CEO of Priime, you might want to listen to that before you watch this. This is basically a short walkthrough of how I use Priime to edit my photos. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview. If you have any detailed questions, there's tutorials all over the web. You can reach out to Art. I would say just download the app and try it yourself. When you initially download the app, you're going to get about 5 different artist styles that you can mess with. I think there's actually more like 8. I can't remember. I actually purchased the whole style pack, and I'll show that all to you in a second. But this is basically how I edit a photo in Priime. So I'll open a photo as I have here already. So you can simply go to your camera roll, select the photo you want to edit. It will load. Now, one cool thing about Priime is it will edit the full resolution file. So if you export a full resolution, it's going to edit that and it's going to retain all that detail. So you're not going to lose anything. It's not going to compress it. So this is the photo I'm going to edit. I've already slightly edited it in Lightroom. Now I'm just going to tweak it a little bit in Priime, and this is how I typically use it. So I'll just kind of walk through the interface. So when you first open Priime, you just select the photo you want to edit. I'm going to use this one. And there's several different options from here. Let's just start up in the top left. You'll see an arrow which will bring you back to your camera roll, and then you'll see the menu up in the top left. Under menu, you can go to Photos, which will bring you back there. You can go right to Styles. We'll show you all the different styles that are available and all the different artists that have contributed styles. If you click on Adrienne Pitts, for example, it'll go through all the different styles that she's created. There's 3 of them in there. If you go to Art Chang's set, he's got 2 in there, and obviously he's the creator. So that just kind of lets you browse through what's available, and you can obviously purchase those for $9.99, which is, I would say, it's a pretty reasonable price considering the app itself is free, and you can pretty much do all the editing you want to with the free, but I think that purchasing the full style pack gives you a lot more flexibility. You can go into your settings, obviously. You can view the introduction. We're not going to do that right now. Learn more about Priime, restore purchases. There's all kinds of different options here. And then feedback, you can submit feedback anytime, obviously, through email. Not going to delete that. I'm not going to use that, so I'm going to delete it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to photos and I'll do the editing. So you can start off with a few different options. So if you click on the censor button, it will analyze it, as you saw pop up there in a second. It'll give you some suggestions based on the colors and the tones, and there's a whole algorithm I don't quite understand, but Art talked about it a little bit in our interview. But yeah, so these are the suggested style edits that you can use to apply to your photo. So this first one's rebellion. All you simply do is just click on them and flip through. And that's pretty much it. So it's suggested 5 different style options. I personally like this nostalgia one the best, so let's just say I want to keep that, but maybe I want to make a few tweaks to it. Down on the bottom left, you're going to see a little slider key, and you can go in here and you can make adjustments just like you would in any other photo app. If I want to mess with the highlights a little bit, I can bring those down, etc. So it has like your basic editing tools in there, and I'm not going to keep this edit, but this is essentially what I usually do before I export it. All right, so now let's say I want to crop it a little bit. There's a crop option. There's a rotate option that you can go into and flip it around if you need to for whatever reason. If you need to straighten it up a little bit, I really like this straightening interface. It's very similar to Screw It, which is another one of my favorite apps that I hope to do a tutorial on someday. And then obviously there's just a general crop. What I like about this is you can just click on it. I usually do a 4x5. You click on the 5x4 and you can click on it again. It'll rotate it to 4x5. Same with all the other ones. Double click them. And then you can do the free option, which will allow you to choose freely how you crop it. I don't usually do much cropping within this app. I mostly do it for the color edits. But okay, so the next button is the back to the style options. I'll come back to that in a second. If I want to revert something, this 4th key at the bottom, it shows me all the history of everything I've done to this photo. So I can revert back to any of the different edits and go back and forth. So it's kind of like, it's almost working like with a history in Photoshop, which I really like. I don't know of any other apps that give you that flexibility. So kudos to Priime for implementing that. Let's say I want to go back to my original, when I first applied the filter, I'll just go there and I'll click it again and it'll bring me back to that edit. So another cool thing that I forgot to mention about the camera roll is down in the bottom left, once you tap the screen, you'll see a plus and minus sign. Minus will give you 4 rows or 4 columns of photos, and you can zoom all the way into 1 column of photos, which is excellent. It's just a more options, and I really just appreciate that option as well. So when you're ready to save it or export it, if you go look down on the bottom right, you'll see the little icon for that, and you've got several different options available to you. So you can post right to Instagram, and it has the hashtags Priime and Priime underscore whatever filter you used. If you hit that little green or copy hashtags to clipboard, it will do that once you click on paste to Instagram. You can also share it to different services, as you can with any other app. And you also have the option to save a copy or save. So the difference between these two is saving a copy just basically saves a brand new image by itself, whereas just clicking save will save the photo along with all the edits you've made to it. So when you go to open it back up in Priime, you can go back and still go back and see all the history of the edits that you've made, which is a really nice feature. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through a little bit more about the layers, or the styles. This is obviously one of the most prominent features in Priime, so I'd like to make sure I really touch on this as much as I possibly can. So it always starts out by default on the suggested option, as far as I know. It seems to, for me at least. So down the bottom left, it'll show you suggested. That's where it starts out. If you click on suggested, you're going to see other categories: mine, favorites, all, authors, categories. That's just a way to sort through what filters you have saved. So if you go to suggested, obviously it's going to show all the suggested filters based on the algorithm that I talked about a little earlier. If you go back under there, you go under mine. This is basically going to show every style that you have downloaded. In my case, I purchased the whole pack, so I have all of them. But you can pick and choose which ones you want to. You don't have to download all of them if you don't want to. If you go back into there, so favorites, you can save favorites. Now, this is a cool feature. I tend to save the ones I find myself using more often. So if I go back into mine, for example, and I find I really like this nostalgia one, which I haven't saved yet, I can just simply hit fave, which is kind of over to the right there, or put a little star on that style for me. And if I go back into favorites, you'll see that pop up there now. So that's how you save favorites, and you can remove them just as simple. Just by, once you're in favorites, just hit faved and it will remove it. But I like that, so I'm going to keep it in there anyway. All is basically the same thing as mine. It just shows you all the different filters you have available to you. Authors, this just allows you to sort through, if you have somebody that you like their edits the best, you can just show all edits by Art Chang, for example. He's only has 2 in there as of right now, but that's just a nice way to filter as well. And categories, so this is I haven't used this all that much, but it does do a pretty good job of matching certain styles to what you're looking for. So for landscape, for example, these are all the different filter options that will pop up, and there's still quite a few, but it takes the whole list out and it just narrows it down for you a little bit, because these were designed specifically for landscape type photos. Again, I usually stick to suggested and favorites, and if I'm not feeling any of those, I'll go back through all of them and try to find one that works best for me. And then once I find the layer style again, I'll go in and I'll make some minor tweaks to it, and sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll keep it just as it is, and I'll make some tweaks once it gets into Instagram. Okay, and I think I touched on this a little bit before, but basically if you click on one of the styles, it will bring you into the artist information. So it'll give you, the name of the style, the artist's name, a brief description of what they were going for when they created this, the hashtag that's associated with this. I liked it. It adds the what it's useful for, because if you're trying to go for a specific mood, that's just helpful information. You can kind of get a look into the eye of the artist who created it, and then some photo examples of that filter in use. So always really helpful. And you can swipe down on that to exit, or you can click on the X. You can click on the dot up top, and you can share that. You can remove it from your favorites or hide it from your suggestions, so it doesn't ever come up as a suggestion again. I haven't had to do that to any of the filters yet, though. So Another thing is with the filters. Obviously, you click on the info, but if you click on adjust, you can adjust the intensity of that filter, just like you could in any other app that uses filters. So, and that is pretty much Prime in a nutshell. So if you guys have any other questions about this, definitely reach out to me. If you hadn't listened to the episode with Art Chang yet, please do that. He goes into a lot of detail about this app, along with the desktop app that Prime developed as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Let me know if you want to see more things like this, and make sure you go download Prime today.